Welcome back to Consider This. I'm Melisa, Idris, with me Sharaad, Kuttan. We are speaking to the CEO of the news portal Malaysiakini, Pramesh Chandran, on the show. Malaysiakini is celebrating 20 years, and we wanted to talk about the change because in the last 2 years, 1.5 years now, it's been such a dramatic change in the media landscape. What does operating a news portal, I guess non-mainstream news portal, mean in Malaysia Baru?
That's a good question.
I mean, people might say, actually, now you are the mainstream. And in fact, Malaysiakini has become mainstream. In fact, the idea of a mainstream alternative might have dissolved some time ago.
Correct.
Yeah, we like to think that the mainstream have become like Malaysiakini. They've had to adopt our ways of doing stuff, to be more independent and objective in their reporting. And to credit to them, I think they have also evolved. I see, our competition, really improving and doing much more better reporting. So credit to them. But yes, for us, Malaysiakini we don't like the duality between alternative and mainstream. It's just about being professional and being independent, regardless of who you are. And that's what we've tried to do all these years. To your question, what has changed? Definitely, it's more competitive. Everybody's doing, good quality media. So Malaysiakini ourselves have to, lift ourselves and do even better and compete in a level playing field. So that's tougher. But from a business angle, previously a lot of advertisers, others would stay away because Malaysiakini was seen to be a bit, too political, a bit too dangerous in its reporting. So doing business today is much easier. We have a lot of tie-ups with corporations and business, and those sort of partnerships are growing. So that part is easier. But the pressure on us is also now to think about, of course we were tied, perhaps not so much to political parties, but in a way we were tied to this voice for democracy. People wanting a more open, democratic Malaysia. That movement was something which Malaysiakini in a way represented. So now that's kind of finished and over, the question is where do we position ourselves and how do we grow? Right. We are small, we're about 120 people, but our competitors are much bigger, right? In terms of, which can be good and bad.
And some of them are, many of them are actually downsizing quite dramatically. I do want to ask you this because I think there's a contention, there's a debate about whether things have changed or not. What's dramatically changed is perhaps the feel that this is a much more free country. Yeah. But on the ground, ownership structures have not changed largely with the media. The people in charge have not changed. So
you mean editorially in charge?
Yeah, okay. Editorially in charge as well. So you see the TV Tigas of the world and all these other outlets, ours included, perhaps either change or not, right? So, I mean, do you think there has been a dramatic change in the way, the news is presented, the priorities of local media?
I think from the media perspective, one hand they look to their owners and to the audience. From the ownership point of view, I think the owners now, whatever their past political affiliations are, want to be on good terms with the current government. So they would kind of like move themselves a little bit on one hand.
So they're still slavish to power?
I won't say slavish to power. I think they don't want to be too confrontational, so they would move, they would adjust. I won't use the word slavish, right? I think on the other hand, the other part is the audience, and the audience demanding good independent journalism.
Is that true though, Prem? I'm just wondering whether the audience is demanding more investigative pieces, more good quality, long form journalism, as opposed to very quick clickbaity headlines, very political, he said, she said type of reporting.
I think the audience definitely there is time pressure. They do want independent journalism. Independent journalism can be short. I think we need to differentiate between independent journalism and long-form journalism. There is an appetite for long-form journalism, but that takes a bit of time to read through, and perhaps over the weekend. On a busy day, yes, it is more bite-sized information, but they still want that to be independent. They want it to be balanced. They want it to be accurate. So I think that the audience today does demand the media in Malaysia shift towards the middle and give much more balanced reporting. And I think media, whoever the owners are responding to that demand.
Yeah, before we get into the question of one MDB and how it really changed the landscape, just a very quick note on state-owned media. I mean, the public broadcasters, have we seen a real change in the conversation? We don't yet have a charter for RTM and Berdama. We don't have the sense that they will emerge as independent institutions, separate from the government of the day. What are your thoughts on that?
I think you're right. I think the government still sees government-owned media as a voice of the government, putting forward government policies. Whether that changes to be an independently, run in public service media, that's a different model. And the government has not said that that's the direction they're heading towards. So I am obviously in favor for much more public service media. So hands-off, publicly owned media, which reports based on what's going on in the country. But that's a debate to come. And now, with the political stress in the country, we do not know whether the government is willing to head in that direction. But I think that the people want that. The people want credible media, whether it's privately owned or publicly owned. And the longer the publicly owned media does not move in that direction, the less viewers they're going to get and the less influence they have.
I'm glad you brought up 1MDB a little bit earlier, Sharaad, because again, that really changed the way people expected the media to report. And I wonder whether the media dropped the ball. Some media dropped the ball in reporting about 1MDB. When it comes to investigative journalism, the argument is often said that it's too expensive to pour resources into this. Malaysiakini has done investigative journalist pieces. Is that true? Is that assumption true, that it is expensive? It is an expensive endeavor to fund?
Speaking as the CEO of the company, it's extremely expensive. I definitely, the editorial team would like to do much more investigative reporting. They will want much more resources to that. In the last 1 year, we have shifted in that direction. We have a news lab team who's doing much more, series and in-depth pieces and long-form journalism. There were a series we do on Pasir Gudang, on Orang Asli. Many of the issues on May 13th, we did one. We're doing more of it, but it is expensive. And it's not only a resource, it's also a matter of access to information. So in Malaysia, it's very difficult to get a lot of information we need to do investigative journalism. So I think those are two barriers, but as journalists, as media, we need to do more of it.
Okay, let's just very quickly talk about some of the gains that have been made, the concrete gains that have been made for the media as a whole since GE14. I mean, do you think on balance there have been substantial gains?
I think it's a much more freer environment. I think we feel it. I think all the the reports, the indexes, the rankings show Malaysia now to be a free media within Southeast Asia. I think the freest. So definitely, I think that is something which has improved. On the commercial terms, it's very tough. I think advertising is not there. So without resources, even if you have freedom, you may not be able to do professional media. So it's both a matter of having the political freedoms and having the revenue to do good media.
It's the business model. Is that it? It's the business model is we haven't quite worked out a sustainable, profitable business model.
Definitely, I think all over the world we see the same situation, that media is under financial pressure and there's retrenchments, etc. But in terms of the political space, I think we've been given a lot of political space. There's been a robust discussion and reporting. I don't think the government has pressed us on anything or tried to censor us in any way. The government has stated in its manifesto and the minister about setting up a media council, which we are working on. It hasn't come to fruition yet, but we are eagerly awaiting the media council, and also a freedom of information bill, which will get us more information and therefore to do more investigative reporting.
Okay, we're going to continue this conversation in just a couple of minutes. Make sure you don't go away right here on Astro AWANI.